morning, good evening. For those of you wherever you're at, thank you for joining the Philly Investor Podcast. Today I have on a very special guest. We happen to be doing a couple of transactions together as brokers, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and give a little bit of his background. So, Reynaldo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reynaldo Nunez. I'm a realtor with Realty Mark Associate. I've been in the business for a while. I started in 2008. I got my first license in California, Orange County. That's where I started the business about buying property. I was doing it for somebody else, and I saw the profit that those people was making when I helped them to buy property and rehabbing and selling. Then I started, why not doing it for myself? So that's when I started in 2008, when the market was really really hard. It was rough for a couple of years, but then we went back. Yeah.
So you started in 2008 in California?
That is correct. Yes.
And in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, how long you've been licensed for here?
Licensed since 2018 in Pennsylvania, in 2020 in New Jersey.
Oh, in Jersey too. Oh,
Yeah. I have my Jersey license too. Yeah. But in 2014 is when I started the investment part. Before I decided to apply for the Pennsylvania license, I started the investment business first. Like I said, I was doing it in another state. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm from the Dominican Republic, but I grew up here.
Okay.
So when I saw the opportunity to do it in Philadelphia, because of the prices all those time on the property, it was very convenient for me. So I bought my first property in 2014 here in Philadelphia.
Okay. Where was the property?
It was in Philadelphia by
what neighborhood?
Olney.
In Olney. Okay.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it a row, a twin? What was it?
It was twins. I was a twins property, the first property. Yep. Okay. Yeah. I bought another property in 2017, and that was in North Philly. That one, I think it was one of my best investment, because that investment it was really good. I bought that property for $28,000. Actually, one of my friend, when I call my friend and I tell him, hey, I just used my credit card to buy a property. He was laughing. He's like, "Are you kidding me?" I say, no. Yeah, that's something that you can do. Yeah. I have really good credit. Like I said, when I was working in California, I learned about how you can borrow money against your credit card, and you don't pay interest rate for a whole year, for 1 year. So I took 2 of my credit card, and I took like $15,000 each on those credit cards, and that's when I bought the first house, and it was free of interest for 1 year. I did have the money, but I didn't want to put the money from my pockets because I'm gonna need money to rehab the property and do all this stuff later, and that's what I did. So I got the money from the credit card, then I fixed the property, and I put the property in the market like 3 months later. And it was a really good profit. That was one of the property.
What was the condition of the property, and what were the circumstances of the owner that he was willing to sell the property for $28,000? And this is 2016.
Yes. Okay. The property it got fire in the back of the house. So it was a situation with insurance. The insurance paid to the owner, but the owner didn't want to live in the property anymore. Actually, he left the property, and he was living with a sister at the time. So the property was vacant. He said, well, I'm gonna get this money from the insurance.
Right.
After I get what I get from the insurance, I will sell the property to you. And he called me a few weeks later, said I just got the money from the insurance. I'm not going to fix the house. I'm just gonna sell it. And he sold the property to me for 28,000. So
Right.
it was half burned. It wasn't like really, really bad. So we have the entire property. At that time, I spent like $32,000 and everything between the contractor who helped me and label material and all that, like around $32,000 on the property. So after we finished the property, probably I would say that I invest in the property around $68,000, something like that. Yeah. And
That's with the acquisition.
yes, between the 28,000 and the 32,000 plus the all the appliances that we bought for the house, yeah, to put on the market, and like
So,
six.
so let me get this straight. It was 28,000 plus 68,
No, it was
or was that
28,000 plus 32 plus the appliances. So total was like 68. The total amount
and how much did you sell it for?
for 119,000.
Okay, so was minus closing costs minus commission.
Yeah,
So
at that time I did have my license. So when I sold it, I bought it in 2017. I sold it in 2018. That was one of the first property that I sold on my license. So I only paid, one side of the transaction, which it was
3%.
the buyer's agent.
Right. So your net was somewhere in the vicinity of about 40,000, 30,000.
A little bit more. It was close to 48, 40 something.
Okay.
Yeah, after the closing costs and everything and all that. Yeah, it was around 48, something like that.
So, for a lot of people listening, their impression of something like that would be, I guess, well, I can do that myself. But like in the case of the owner here, I presume that person was elderly.
Well, yeah, and he had the situation that the house was burned, so he didn't want
Right.
to go back to the house and fix it and live in the house again. He got money from the insurance, and
Right.
he
He got
decided to
paid
move to
twice.
another area,
Yeah.
a
So
better area.
he was
So it makes
staying with,
sense.
it made sense for him because he was older. He was living with his sister, so he doesn't have to worry about rent. Um, on a fire job like that, depending on his insurance, he might have gotten up to 70 or $80,000 from the insurance company.
Probably,
So, getting that plus getting another almost $30,000 from you, plus no rent. I mean, that made perfect sense. Not to mention the fact that, if he had to hire someone
yeah.
to fix the house, who knows how long that would have taken. Maybe his plans also changed. Who knows? There's a lot of factors that, it's just like a hassle. It's easier to get the money and forego all that headache than it is to maybe do anything else. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It made total sense.
Because
Definitely.
for a lot of people listening, they think to themselves, well, I'd rather, fix the property myself or something like that. But the other thing about it is that, in order to do a rehab on a property like that, if you're going to do it yourself, you have to, first of all, you have to pull permits.
You're gonna deal
You
with a
have
lot
to,
of stuff. You have to hire a licensed contractor because remember the property went through a process. They um, need to be approved by the city. So we did have a different inspector coming to the property,
yeah,
so it's a situation. Plus, what I hear from him is that he was about to move to a better area. Remember, we were talking about North Philly, and
where in North Philly? What part?
it was around Richmond, like a couple street before Aramingo Avenue, between Tioga
Oh, okay,
and
yeah,
yeah, some around that area. Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
he was about to use that money to put that on a down payment for a property in the Northeast, which was a little bit better for him.
So it's interesting what you said. It just kind of came to mind, which is, even though you own the property and you're a licensed agent in Pennsylvania, you still paid a commission to another agent of 3% to sell the property uh,
Hmm.
for you, because a lot of people would have the perception of, oh, well, you're an agent, you can sell it yourself. Well, yeah, true, but just because you're an agent, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have a buyer for the house
Yeah,
that you own.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know, so we were talking about this federal ruling that just kind of came down the pike
Hmm.
out in Kansas City federal court, that a lot of homeowners filed an antitrust suit against Remax and Keller Williams and Berkshire Hathaway, which are some of the major outfits in the United States and internationally, really, where it claims that they uh, paid a commission to a buyer's agent. They were no, they were forced to pay a 3% commission to a buyer's agent in order to sell their property. And I thought that was a very interesting perspective, given the fact that none of these brokers, as far as I can tell, ever hid the fact that out of the 6% commission that they're charging,
Hmm.
they would be willing to give half that, 3%, to someone else to sell that property for them.
Right.
And so now it's looking more and more like, and granted, no one knows because there's actually a second suit that's going to be happening next year. It may force people in the real estate industry to no longer cooperate with each other. So hypothetically, like in your case, you bought a house,
Mhm.
and as a licensed agent broker, you put the house on the market, and you were perfectly willing to pay someone 3% of the sales price to sell the house as a professional so that they can make a
Yeah.
living. Now,
I put a property on the market. I did represent myself on the seller side. I just have to have the incentive for somebody else who can bring the buyer to the property.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as brokers, um, or as investors, we network with each other. So for example, you and I are currently working on a transaction, which we're not going to say the address, but originally I got called out on this property in Northeast Philadelphia, and let's be honest, the property needs a lot of work, you know,
Yes.
but if it were just a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, I don't see the owner getting more than like maybe $80,000 for it. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Yeah.
But because of a variety of factors, including like a shortage right now or a perceived shortage of listings on the market, um, we wound up selling it for $150,000 well, you sold it for 150. I listed it for 150. And granted, the property is worth more money, but
Hmm.
it also needs work. Um, and even with the owner getting almost double the amount of money that they would have gotten a couple of years ago, it was still like pulling teeth to try to get them not only to accept the offer, but to give the buyer some reasonable credit back after the home inspection revealed quite a bit of work on the
Hmm.
property. But, I think that's really interesting And I think it's indicative of what the market looks like now compared to what it looked like pre-pandemic. Would you mind, maybe sharing some perspective on that? Because you were in the business already pre-pandemic and what it's like now post-pandemic.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Pre-pandemic, it was, let's call it normal, right? We used to sell, I would say the average 15 to 20 properties. So the market, it was
Per
stable.
year or per month?
A year. No, it's no way that you can sell 50,000,
There's people
15
out there that
property.
do it.
Well, it all depends. Now I'm in a group, so we average. The group is average 30 properties for month. So we are quite busy right now. It's really good right now. And after the pandemic, myself, I sold like 50 property in 1 year. So that's when I decided to start the group, because it was impossible for me to handle all the buyers, all the people was calling me and I want to buy property now. Here's the situation and all that. So that helped. And I also have another business. I don't know if we can
Tax
talk about
business.
that. Yeah, the tax preparation business,
Sure.
and that helped me a lot because a lot of the people, they come to my office and they want to have their taxes done. Sometimes they not even know that they're qualified to buy a property.
Mhm.
It does come as a surprise for me, because if you work, you have good credit, and you have saved some money, the next question for me would be like, can I buy a property? And people there are just comfortable paying rent. Oh, I'm paying rent. I don't have to worry. Um, if I buy a house, then I have to think about mortgage and insurance and taxes and all that and all that. And we decided to start a bunch of seminar for first home buyer. And one of the things that we talked on those seminar, it was about the difference between paying rent and buying property, and all that happened after the pandemic. That's why we're talking about this, because like you was asking me after the pandemic, what is stuff that's been happening is bringing people to the situation where they are right now, comparing paying rent to paying a mortgage. And I tell them, I used to live in a condominium that I used to pay $1,500 a month, which it was like 19 between 18,000 to 19,000 a year for 5 years. That was $90,000 that I paid.
Sure. Absolutely.
And after the 5 years, when I decided to leave the condominium, the owner, he came back to me like asking for more money because of the situation or the property after that I left. That kind of stuff happened. When you have a deposit, they didn't want to give you the deposit and all that.
Sure.
The bottom line is, when you pay rent, you don't own a property. It's no way that at the end of the 5 year you can come back to the landlord and say, hey, I pay you rent for 5 years, you have to give me some money back. It's not happening. It's not how the system works. And I find that the hard way. And my situation after I finished paying rent, which and we're talking about, that was back on the day that was even before I got licensed in 2005. When I bought my first property in 2007 in California, 2 years later, the property was worth close to $200,000 more in just 2 years.
So you had all the appreciation.
Exactly. So all the different, when you pay rent, which is money that you just floss through the toilet, then when you buy a property, it's two things happening. When you buy a property, not only the monthly payment go toward the value of the property, but also the equity of the property, it keep growing. So that's the difference when you pay rent and when you pay a mortgage. You see where your money at. When you pay rent, it just flows into a toilet. At the end of the month, or at the beginning of the month, you have to pay that rent, and at the next day, you already counting toward the payment of your next month rent. When you pay mortgage, it's the different. That mortgage, that payment is going to the principal, so your principals go down, and also the value of the properties go up. That's how I found out. I did that. Then, like 5 years later, I bought that property for $425,000, and 5 years later, I sold the property for $789. So I almost double the profit in just one property. The same 5 years. On 10 years, I paid rent for the first 10 years, and I just lost 90,000. And the next 5 years that I bought a property, I got a profit close to $400,000. So you see the difference. That's when I teach it people, and they can open their eyes and say, you're right. It's better buying a property and paying a mortgage than being just paying rent.
I guess the question that some people would have is why. It sounds crazy. Why would somebody sell you a property or sell us a property as investors worth, almost $800,000 for, $489,000? Like, why? Is that person desperate? Like, what's the reasoning behind that? So what was the circumstance under which the owner of that property found himself or herself that would allow him or her to say, you know what, this makes more sense for me to sell the property at this price? Do you remember the set of circumstances?
Yeah. Well, first, what we were talking about, that was in California, in Orange County, and that was in 2008. And remember, that was when the market crashed. So it was a duplex. It was really nice size. It used to have 2,300 square feet, the main property, and they have another property at 1,700 square feet. So it was really good size. And the value of that property, it was about like 600,000. But when the market crossed and the value went down and down, that property came down to like 380, something like that. So the owner got scared, and he didn't want to keep paying the mortgage at that time. He said that at this point, the property is going to be worth nothing. So he decided.
So at the time, the property was underwater.
Yes.
Underwater, for those of the audience listening that doesn't understand the term, it's almost like a boat that takes on, if the boat takes on enough water, then the boat will sink.
Yeah.
And in the real estate world, when a property is underwater, that means that there's more debt than value on the property. So
Exactly.
what Reynaldo's saying is, the property value crashed below what the amount owed on the property was. So what did you do? Take over the mortgage?
No, I just bought the property because the interest rate was really good at that time. So I just bought the property for $425,000. My payment, it was like around $2,850 with everything included.
You pretty much paid retail for the property.
Yeah.
Exactly. Paid over retail. So
yeah. So, but
you got the guy. He had a mortgage. You paid off his mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
You walked away with I don't know, 30,000, I guess, after expenses.
I was close to 75,000. He was really happy. He made it a good deal because he owned the property for like 10 years. So the property, it was new too. It wasn't that old. It was, I think it was built. Say it again.
Did you live in the property?
Yes, that was a property that I bought, and I live in the property. The property was built in 20 2002. So it wasn't that old when I bought the property in 2008. It was only 6 years old, so it was really new. And remember, it was a duplex. So I did a little bit of investment, not that much. I spent like $45,000, putting like half a bathroom on the main property and fixing the other property, like new floor, that kind of stuff. But only with the rent of the small unit, it was close enough to pay the home mortgage. My home mortgage, it was like 2860, something like that, and I used to have 1,700 charge just for the second unit, which it was 2 bedroom and 1 bath, 1,200 square foot. So it was really good. It was decent. Yeah.
So back in 2008, for those of the audience that maybe are too young to remember or have a bad memory, and for those of you that have never quite understood what happened, there's movies out there like The Big Short.
Oh yeah.
Then there's other
really good movie
about how you could do a loan back then and just go to a mortgage company and tell them, I make $1 million a year. And they'd say, oh, great, no problem. Here's a loan. You could basically heat up warm up a mirror, fog up a mirror, I should say. They would say, okay, well, here's a loan. Your score's over 600. Yeah, no problem. So a lot of people that shouldn't have gotten loans did get loans, combined with banks over leveraging themselves because of greed, and other things as well that led to like one of the largest crashes in history for real estate. So a lot of people that had not owned their property that long all of a sudden saw a negative equity in their property.
Right.
And not only that, but a lot of like what happened with me was a lot of my tenants that were, working class, they got laid off because one of the companies that went out of business was a big insurance company called AIG. Do you remember AIG?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what I didn't know, which I found out later, is AIG insures payrolls, or they used to insure payrolls. Wow. So now all of a sudden, this big insurance company that used to insure payrolls was out of business. So a lot of companies had to lay off or fire their workers because they didn't have that insurance company around anymore to underwrite. So it was a shit show, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
How do you compare the market then compared to what the market is now? It's like a different thing.
Definitely. That's why I'm gonna say I want to come back to pre-pandemic and the situation that I was talking to you about. Some people, when they come to my office, I have a lady who was working for the school district for more than 15 years.
For the what?
15 years. Working for the school district
of Philadelphia.
Yes, the school district of Philadelphia. And she didn't know that she can qualify to buy a house. And she didn't know the school district have an agreement with one bank in Philadelphia that it was giving her, just the school district of Philadelphia was giving her $15,000 plus the PFHA program. Sure. Plus another program that we had. That was the first closing that I have in more than 12 years that I have working on the real estate business. The first closing that I have a buyer walking out of the closing table with a check. Instead of bringing a check to closing,
she got paid to buy a house.
Yeah, she got a little bit extra than the money that she needs. So they have to give her the money. So that was great. It was a good experience. So when I talk to her and I say, hey, you have good credit. I've been doing your taxes for a few years now, and I can see that you make enough money to buy a house. You say, well, I didn't know that I can buy a house. I say, yes, you can. let's have a conversation. So I sit with her, I run the number, I call the school district because I knew that they have a program for her, and they say yes, if she's willing to buy a property, we can help her. So I I sent all the documents, the 2 years of taxes that it was required, and that was it. She got pre-approved for more than what she was looking for, and I helped her to buy a house. She was so happy. Even today's day, she called me and used to bring a lot of gift to the office every time that she was back to the office. That kind of stuff. That was a really nice experience for me because from somebody that didn't know they couldn't qualify to buy a property, helping her to qualify and find the property that she liked. She's in love with the property. She liked the neighborhood and all that. The amount that she's paying, she's paying on her mortgage because we got that property. That was in 2022. That was last year. No, it was at the end of 2021, after the pandemic, when the pandemic was um, almost over. So she have a really good interest rate. She had the 2.25 interest rate because his credit was really good. Yeah, she had a credit of 800 and plus, and she didn't know she can qualify. So is paying less for her mortgage than what she was paying on rent.
Right.
And she owned the property, and she find a really nice property in the Northeast, good, really good price, and she's happy. Everybody's happy.
How much was her payment on the house?
She was paying rent 1550. She was paying $1,550 a month on rent, and the mortgage is if I remember correctly, it was 1288, including taxes and insurance. Yeah,
Yeah.
a 2.25 for 220,000 property.
Yeah. Well, good luck finding
Oh,
anything for rent in a decent part of the Northeast for under $1,500. It's not
yeah, yeah,
maybe like a one-bedroom apartment in an okay part, but not anymore. Rents, you could actually rent for 1,500 um all day long,
yeah,
but
yeah.
now it's the rents have creeped up closer to 2,000. Yeah.
It is. I know. Believe me,
What
it's
what I
crazy.
what I think maybe you misunderstood me a little bit when I was asking pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. I don't mean from the perspective of buyers and what monies are available in terms of grants and things like that. I meant more like the psychology of owners. You know, I think for me, because I mainly am more of a listing agent. You know, um, I think that, like, so for example, on the transaction that we're working on, the people have been there since the in their house since the late '80s, and I think their payment on their house is like $300 or $400 a month,
Wow.
and so they want to be in the suburbs close to their son and their grandchildren, and so they're looking at two-bedroom townhouses now, starting at $2,500 to $3,000 a month.
Whoa.
So, I try to put myself in the shoes of people that have been paying, let's face it, next to nothing for their housing expense, that are retired, semi-retired in their 70s, and the sticker shock that they're experiencing. And if it wasn't for their son, who's very well paid executive, helping them, um, I don't know how they would be able to justify living somewhere for that amount of money. Like, it's a huge jump. It's what, $2,700 more than they're used to paying, and they live on a fixed income of about close to $7,000 a month. So it becomes a big percentage of their monthly income. So I think that's one of the things that people have to deal with, the inflation.
Definitely.
And it's not only in housing, it's also in cars. I heard a statistic that says now that a couple of years ago, the average car payment was between $400 and $500. Now the average car payment has jumped to between $750 to $1,000 a month.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that for a fact. Yeah. I when I went to buy a car in 2021, um, because I have a good credit, the interest rate it was 2.99, and because of promotion that they was having at the time, I don't know if he because of it was right after the pandemic. I got an interest rate for 5 years, 1.99
Wow.
for 5 years in a brand new vehicle. It was great. And right now, I went to have my vehicle have service, and I saw one of the new one, and I was talking to the guy who sold me the vehicle.
How much was your payment at that interest rate?
7.99. That is the payment right now. The interest rate is unbelievable for.
So your payment was $799?
The payment is 7.99.
Okay.
Right now because of the vehicle is it was for me it was a really good deal. The pricing, the interest rate, and all that is good. So one of the new one yesterday, and the price is unbelievable. Just on the interest rate, the difference is like $500 on the same vehicle, same price, just because of the interest rate.
So it's $1,300.
Yes, it's about 12 something. It's almost 500. Yeah, those 12 something. The payment for the same vehicles. I said, wow, that's shocking.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. David, I don't know if you have a lot of experience with hard money lender, or if you talk to on the postcard about the hard money lending situation. I say it again.
What about it? What's the situation that you're referring to?
Well, there's a lot of people out there. For some reason, they don't qualify for a regular loan, and that is one of the venues that I present to a lot of my clients, a lot of people who come to my office for different situations. If they don't qualify for a regular loan, that's one of the ways that they can purchase a property, even if it is for investment or for owner occupied, how we call it, or for them to live on the property. That's one of the things that they can do.
Can you give me an example of so maybe a reason that a person might not qualify for a regular loan might be because maybe they're not showing enough money in taxes, or maybe they have a couple of dings on their credit that's not been straightened out, or something like that, correct?
Yeah. Let me give you two. I have one in New Jersey and one here in Pennsylvania. The one in New Jersey, he's an owner of a business. I'm not going to call the business, but he was making really good money on the business side, but in his personal taxes, he didn't present a lot of taxes because the business was making the money, not him, which it's understandable today's date. If your business is making money,
he wasn't paying himself.
Exactly. So yeah, his own taxes, it was around like 40,000 a year. It wasn't enough. So I called a friend of mine. I tell him, hey, I have this situation. He's making really good money on the business, but not really good on his own income. And he was able to get him qualified based on his last 12 months of income
from the business.
Bank statement. Sorry, on last 12 bank statement, he was qualified for $450,000 property with only 15% down payment, which is I think is really really good. That was one of the situations that we have in Jersey, and the one here in Philadelphia.
So you're saying that he used hard money to buy his personal residence.
It's two different situations. The one that he got, it wasn't hard money. It was a bank statement program. The other one, it was a hard money lender. So they were similar. It's not the same. That's why I was saying it's different. If they're going to buy the property as an investment, it has to be a hard money lender, but they can buy the property as an owner occupy or buy a property to live on the property with 15% with the bank statement program, which is, I think, is awesome. It's really good. It's going to help a lot of people to buy their own property, which was the case. The one in New Jersey was a bank statement program to buy the property, to live in the property. The other one here, he bought the property as an investment because he had a business, but he didn't have enough income to buy the property. So he bought the property using a hard money lender money with 20% down.
Yeah. So for those people in our audience that don't know what hard money lending is, it's basically when either an individual is willing to lend his money to another individual or company. Generally speaking, the underwriting, the qualifications are different because basically it's that person's either own private money or money that he lends for other private individuals, and they make up their own underwriting standards. They decide what your credit needs to be or how much you need to put down or not put down. And, if the deal is good enough, hypothetically, you can get a loan on a property for no money down, no down payment. And in some instances, they'll even finance, if the property needs work, finance some of the rehab costs on the property. And I know this all too well because I've probably borrowed somewhere between 10 and $20 million over the years for deals that I've done through a hard money source. So I'm actually probably going to have one of my hard money guys on the podcast pretty soon. I just have to schedule that. So yes, the answer is yes. And I think what Reynaldo's saying is a different take on that as a residential broker. For those people that don't qualify for FHA, VA, or regular conventional loans, that's like another alternative. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely.
Yeah,
it is.
it's fantastic.
Perfect.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience that they might find valuable? Because again, I like to keep this to things that are valuable, not just to us as people in the business, because it's almost like you ever been around doctors or lawyers, and when they talk to each other, it they there's this camaraderie and they understand the world through their own experience. But listening from the outside, you're like, what the heck are they talking about? Because they never take the time to explain a lot of times inside baseball, so to speak. Like, what is it that they're talking about? What does it mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
we use the term hard money, or we use the term depreciation, or things like that. And so regular Joe, sometimes they might think, oh, these people are talking a different language or something. Why don't they explain well what they're talking about? It's almost like our own little secret. And I want to demystify all the things that that we talk about, so that people go, oh, this is what this means, and this is the reason that this is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, for sure. What I would say is, what I consider would be that really good value for it. The people today's day, it would be even the interest rate is a little bit higher. This is a good time, great time, I would say, to buy property, investment property or personal property, owner occupied property. Reason why is whatever you see today and the value $150,000, $200,000 now, in 5 years from now, it's going to be double the price and value. So I think it's a really good time to buy property because we see the property, the value of the property go high a little bit and the market just stop. Right now it's like, like even, but in a couple years from now, it's going to go back up again. It's going to go way high. So,
Okay. Let me stop you right there. I disagree with you.
Okay.
So, a $200,000 property based on that you sold, right, to this woman that works for the school district. I don't know how much she earned. Do you remember how much she earned per year?
The buyer?
Yeah, for that
Yeah,
property.
around 45,000.
Okay. So the average American today makes about $36,000 a year. But that's about correct, right? So your customer made how much? 40?
Around 45, 44, 45,000.
She's right in the average, right? An average couple make about $70,000 a year. Okay. So based on that 2% interest, it made logical sense for her, whereas she was paying $1,500 a month or whatever, 16, who knows. It made sense that she would buy a house, get money back, and then only pay $1,200 a month. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Now, that's at 2% interest. Now, let's fast forward now. It's 8% interest.
7.50, something like that.
Yeah, whatever. It's more than 2%, right?
Yeah.
So that $1,200 payment now is how much? Same house.
Yeah, same house, probably 1,800.
Right. But did her pay jump, or is her pay about the same? Probably.
But probably the same.
Probably about the same. Right. So, that extra $600 makes a difference. Right.
Yeah.
So, let's fast forward in your example to, years from now, that property will be worth $500,000, you said, right? Well, that's good news, maybe if you own it. But it's bad news if people's pay doesn't go up along with the value of property. So then for me, that begs the question, can it go up that much? Okay, well, let's see. Who will be able to afford that $500,000 if people are still making $45,000 to $50,000? Interest rates would have to be just about zero for them to be able to afford it. Because the truth of the matter is, and we both know this, to retail buyers, what do they look at in terms of, they look at, well, what's my monthly payment going to be? Is it better than what I'm paying now in rent or commensurate? Because, if you're paying $1,600 in rent and arguably your monthly payment even is $1,700, you could still say, well, it's a little bit more than what I pay in rent, but I own the place. So there's a pride of ownership.
Yeah.
The other thing that they look at is, well, how much am I going to need for down payment? Because the average American doesn't have $1,000 to their name. If they had to come up with $1,000 for an emergency, they couldn't do it, which is why our busiest time of year in real estate is when? Spring, right?
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
is it because of weather? Why is that?
I would say there's a couple of
You know
things.
the answer to this question of all people. Why? What
Uh,
happens in the springtime?
Taxes.
People
It's
get a
income
tax
taxes.
refund.
Yeah, people get money.
Right. So
Yeah.
you prepare people's tax returns.
Hmm.
So, how much is an average tax return that people get back that you do on the average? $5,000?
Yeah, around I would say $5,000 to $6,000. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, in Philadelphia, at least, that's enough for a decent down payment
Hmm.
on a property. Plus, we help people get grants, right?
Yep.
Plus, sometimes owners of property are willing to help with closing costs. So yeah, that's more than enough for a 200, $300,000 house, which is what the average house sells for in
Yeah.
Philadelphia now, correct?
Hmm.
Right. So, you know, does real estate appreciate? Yes. Is that a good reason to own it? Yes. But
Yes.
along with that appreciation comes taxes. Taxes never go down, do they?
Yeah. No,
They
no.
do.
But remember that the
Real estate tax.
payment they have is a fixed payment. In the case of our buyer, they pay $1,200. She paid $1,200 fixed for 30 years. Of course, the taxes and insurance are going to change.
Correct.
The value of the property is going to go up. That's what I'm saying is I think it's worth it than
Well,
paying rent.
yes. My thing is though, the reason that you can sell anything is, well, who's your audience, right? Can your audience afford it? So one of the issues now, which we both in the transactions that we're doing, is around affordability, right?
Hmm.
The second one of my listings that you sold, the owner took a haircut to be able to sell your buyer the house because your buyer only qualified for under $160,000 when
Hmm.
that property originally was up for sale for, I think, for $175,000. But the owner of that property was willing to sell that property to your buyer just because the houses that they own is almost free and clear. They're older, they want to live someplace else, and I already found them another house. So they
Nice.
were willing to take a haircut, said to hell with it. Let's do that because it made sense to them, right?
Yeah,
But it still comes down to affordability. You know, if you're
definitely.
selling cars, if you're selling motorcycles, you're selling houses, you know, your your customers still have to be able to afford it. And if interest rates quadruple and prices stay high, it actually keeps people away from the buying process.
Hmm.
Or even if they qualify, like in your case, you had two qualified buyers, they couldn't go above a threshold of a certain amount of money. And luckily, we were able to, work it
Yeah.
out on both deals so that the owner is like, okay, screw it. Yeah, let's move forward. That makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Total sense. Right.
Okay. So I guess on that note, for now, we'll wrap things up. And is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. If you have any question or people would like to get in touch with me, they can do it through you or no any other way.
What's the
And
name of your tax business?
it's total taxes.
Toro Taxes. Okay.
Total taxes. Yes, a
T O
franchise.
T O R O, correct? Like
Yes,
a bull.
TORO. Total taxes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome. All right. Well, have a good day, and I'll talk to you probably later today.
All right. Thank you very much.